Good afternoon. I'm Mark Allen with Gaper.io, and I'm here today with Diana Yuen, and she is the co-founder and VP of Talent at Indico Data. Good afternoon, Diana.
Good afternoon.
How
Thanks
you
for
doing
having
today?
me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm doing good. It is nice and sunny out, so can't complain.
Yes, that's always nice. It's that time of year where you start to get the good days. So can you share a brief background of yourself and your work experience?
Yeah. Um, Exciting start. So my company actually started while we were still in college. So I was at Babson College and my co-founders were at Olin College of Engineering. I actually met my co-founder through a class. It was actually like affordable design and entrepreneurship. And we actually had to start a startup together. And at the same time, my co-founders had fallen in love with this new technology called machine learning. And so that summer, I remember just getting a text from him and my co-founder, and he was just like, hey, like, let me take you out for a beer. I would love to like tell you what we're working on. And so basically I've like since fallen in love with machine learning. We were fortunate enough to get into the TechStars program. So ended up taking a semester off of school. And at the completion of the program, we were able to raise a 3 million seed round, which really got us kind of like off of our feet and also prevented my co-founders from coming back to school. But I was able to kind of scrape by and finish my degree. And so I've been running culture, people, finances for my startup for the past, let's see, I think it's almost 6 or 7 years now.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
So what's been your experience with remote employment? And normally I ask people as an employee and an employer, but it sounds like you've only been an employer. Is that correct?
Yeah. So we've had a really interesting history with remote work. So we actually have a engineer who's based in UK, and we actually had a front-end engineer who was based here, but then relocated to Amsterdam. So I think it's interesting because now everybody's working from home given the current climate and situation. But I feel like we've been really fortunate to have had somewhat experience with remote work so that the transition wasn't too bad. And our engineers each before, the whole pandemic really has come to be, they each kind of had like a work from home day, like 1 day a week. So their transition actually ended up being not as bad as I think, as other companies who aren't accustomed to some work from home processes.
Yeah. So if they're already working 20% of the time from home, you already had all of the security stuff and all that stuff set up for them, correct?
Yes. Yeah. So then I think the biggest things that we had to change was just solidifying a lot of processes and communication specifically.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very good. So what do you think is the future of remote employment, and what do you think can be done differently to make it more effective?
Yeah, I think remote work is here to stay. I feel like, at least for my organization, the past couple of weeks, we fortunately haven't like missed a beat. We've been able to stay productive. And I think on a kind of bigger scale, I do think remote work is here to stay because of, the pandemic, but also for other reasons. I think like at a higher level, the access to talent is huge. So if you're able to work with people regardless of their geographical location, obviously you have access to a broader talent pool. And I think that way you can also be, strategic with spending and resources and things like that. That said, I think there is a need out there for more tools around remote work, particularly I think tracking productivity and effectiveness, as well as communication-based tools. Slack is great. That is definitely one that we lean on a lot, but I think the communication piece is huge when working remote. I was actually talking to one of our engineers today. He actually told me that he feels like they've been communicating way more now that they've been remote, as opposed to being in the office when, you just rely on like the person sitting next to you, just being there. They've actually been like forced to communicate more, which is really interesting. Yeah,
and it's an interesting dichotomy or whatever, because it forces you to be more proactive about it and say, hey, I need to talk to you at this time, or
Yeah.
right? If you're both in the office together, you say, oh, I'll just talk to them after lunch. And
Exactly.
they
Yeah.
might not be there after lunch. They might be booked the whole day, right?
That's exactly it. Yeah.
Mhm. Yes,
Which
I
is
actually talked to one company that it was interesting. Their employees, they were in the travel industry, so they got free travel, and their employees were all over the world. And what the employees
wow.
would do on their own is schedule trips to go meet each other.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, you kind of like touched on it as well, is there's definitely a benefit to the in-person stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so, I don't think that will go away
Right.
completely, but um, with the in-person stuff, like we've been trying to talk about, do we reopen the office at any point? If we do, what does it look like? What we realize is in person only makes sense because you have like a critical mass, right? So like
Mhm.
if we only bring in 2 engineers, it's not really effective, and especially if like the rest of the team is remote.
Yeah.
So it's definitely, yeah, it's made planning for reopening really interesting, and especially since we still have that office space sitting there not being used.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, hopefully we can figure out a way to get some value there.
Hopefully, yeah. There's a lot of
Yeah.
unused office space right now.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Our poor landlord. Oh man, yeah.
Lots of poor landlords, I know, and
Yeah.
banks on, it's a trickle effect.
Yes.
So what is the story behind Indico Data? I mean, what is your product offering and who do you sell to? All those things.
Yeah, yeah. So our main clients right now, we serve the financial services and insurance companies, Fortune 1000. We're primarily focused on helping organizations accelerate their highly manual and document-based processes. So anywhere where you have a team of humans who have to analyze a lot of invoices or contracts and like pull out key information and put it into a downstream system, we can help extract that information so the human can then easily make the decision they need to. So we're all about helping to make work a little more efficient.
Very good. And you use artificial intelligence to do this, right?
Yes, yeah. So we use machine learning. The subset of machine learning technology that we use is called transfer learning, which is essentially applying one domain knowledge to another. So in a way, we've kind of bootstrapped the machine learning process, and with as little as like 200 examples of contracts, we can get a pretty usable model that they can use in production. So yeah, so rather than using hundreds of thousands of examples, you can start automating processes where you don't have that much data to actually build a model. Yeah.
So are you on-prem or are you SaaS model?
Yeah. So we do on-prem. We also do in the cloud. We deploy basically any way our clients want. So previously, when we first started, on-prem used to be like what most folks want. We're starting to see that cloud is becoming more common. So
Mm-hmm.
we, deploy on GCP, AWS, Azure. Those are all great. Yeah.
And just out of curiosity, because the nature of some of the, especially fintech, you might have people that want the on-prem just because of the nature of the data. Is that true?
Exactly right. That's exactly it. So a lot of companies in the financial space, they have restrictions about. I even think some of them, like within like regulations, like literally the data cannot leave.
Yeah.
So yeah, for those deployments, we have to go on site and get them set up and things like that. But we want to make sure we can like work within their constraints.
Very good. So
Yeah.
how did you incorporate the idea of remote at your company? It sounded like correct me if I'm wrong, did it start with two people that moved to Europe and that's.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So yeah, it started. Yeah, actually, now that I think about it, started that. So one of the folks that we found, we actually recruited from the UK. So we had like found him through like GitHub and just, really wanted him as part of the team. And he seemed like he's based in the UK. So like the time zone difference, it's enough overlap for us to make it work. And we've been working with him, I think almost for 2 years, and it's been going great. We did have a policy where we brought all remote people on site at least once a quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really helpful that in FaceTime. Obviously, we can't really do that now. So I'm always trying to think of creative ways to like bring the team together and like do the like socialization stuff, even though we can't do it in person.
Yeah, I understand. So,
Yeah.
it's funny. We've talked about the current pandemic a little bit here, and that forced all companies to go remote. Not all companies, but 95% of companies to go remote.
Yeah.
basically in mid-March. You already were somewhat remote. Did going 100% remote cause any challenges that you didn't expect?
Yeah, I think it we definitely had to get into a bit of a groove, I think, the first couple of weeks, and figuring out like, all right, what is enough communication, what's too much communication.
Mhm.
And there's also and also like, where do we communicate, right? Because there's like so many different ways now to talk to folks. Like, we've kind of standardized on, all right, certain Slack channels is where we'll put like key announcements. And I think I'm relying a little less on email and using Slack a little more. I've also started doing one-on-ones with actually our entire team,
Mm.
which has been helpful. So it's definitely, I think, which something that I didn't realize, it's not necessarily a challenge, I would say. It's more of just an adjustment to my schedule, is making sure that I can have these like touch bases with everybody. And also just, we're in unique times. This is not normal, right? So like, mental health is also really important to making sure that like our folks are taking care of themselves. So me being able to jump on these one-on-ones have been really helpful. But yeah, I think overall the transition was pretty smooth. And luckily, since we are a technology company, I think that we've been pretty equipped, and we already had a bunch of tools. I'm trying to think if we added any tools. I don't think we added any tools. We already had Slack and things like that. But yeah, overall, it's been pretty good.
It's funny because I talked to a lot of people about this, and almost all the tech savvy companies, it's never been the technology, it's been the personal side.
Yes, the personal side, definitely. I mean, hey, teamwork makes the dream work. It's all about the people at the end of the day. I'm definitely a true believer of that.
Yeah, because they are your talent. They are your best asset.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Without them, nothing gets done.
That's right. And then you don't have customers. It kind of
Right?
goes hand in
No
hand.
company.
Without
Yeah.
customers, you don't have a company. Without good people, you don't have customers.
Yep. Exactly.
So there are companies like Gabriel that help develop, build, and scale products, especially for startups like yourself. How important do you think that is going to be going forward, where you have to, I mean, you have very
Yeah.
unique skill, machine learning,
Yeah.
not something that everybody knows. So
Yeah.
going forward, how important do you think companies like this will be?
Yeah. So honestly speaking, I think it's gonna be critically important also, because the reality is the pandemic's had a pretty big effect on a lot of people's budgets. And so I also run all of our HR. And so I feel like working with groups like Gaper allows for you to actually get the work you need done without having to go through the cost of finding an employee, onboarding the employee. If it doesn't work out, I think I read a statistic, the cost of like a mishire is around, like, I don't know if you know this, it's like 30 grand. It's high,
Yes.
basically. It's very, very high. So working with, firms like Gaper, it just allows for you to get the projects that you need done without having to make that investment. And it is risky, when you hire someone new, you have to train them. If you're not, used to working in a remote environment, that's like another layer of complexity. So I think, as we continue in this, new normal, I would say, I think folks are going to need to be strategic on where they invest in like resources and things like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, Diana, this has been very fascinating. I want to thank you for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome, and have a great day.
You too.